Hey, welcome to Explore HVAC and Home Services podcast, where we uncover stories, strategies, and some tips and maybe a few secrets behind successful businesses. I'm your host, Pam Mashburn, and today we're joined with a special guest, Seth Ure, and he is with a company called SetSale. Welcome, Seth.
Thanks, Pam. Thanks for having me.
Tell the audience a little bit about you and your background.
Well, my background doesn't really make any sense at all. So I'll give the short, version rather than the scenic version. I didn't intend on winding up in the HVAC space, which I think is true of a lot of people who are in HVAC and home service trades. It's not where you're planning on going. So I did a law degree and an MBA, and I wanted to actually go practice international law in China. So I moved to China for a year and worked in a law firm there. And as it turns out, my wife really hated living in China, and it wasn't exactly a great place to raise the two kids that we had at the time. And so my brother happened to be good buddies with sort of the COO of Daikin, and we jumped on a call, and he kind of hired me right over the phone. And so I decided to abandon the law and go into the business route of things. With Daikin, I did several things, did a lot of supply chain stuff, did some projects, was one part of the integration team that brought Daikin and Goodman together, worked on the manufacturing project that built out that new plant out in Waller. And then I was over all the outdoor splits equipment for a couple of years, working with distribution, doing roadmap planning for all of the outdoor systems. So really got a pretty broad view of the overall HVAC landscape. And then from there, I got recruited into the financing world. So home improvement financing, worked with EGIA and had my own platform for a year, then went to Good Leap and helped launch that home improvement platform. Then a little over a year ago, decided we'd been building for a little bit and we're ready to launch SetSale. So
Wow.
I've kind of bounced all over the place.
You look too young to have done all of these things. So you must be a real go-getter. Um, and you've seen the industry from a lot of different angles, like you mentioned, manufacturing, finance, contractor, even sales. What's one thing that our HVAC owners and contractors don't realize about the whole ecosystem and things that might surprise them?
Yeah. I think just understanding the ecosystem and who the players are and what their motives are. I think if you're the contractor, you look around, you just think that all of these guys are trying to sell me something. And you're the target and they're all just targeting you, trying to sell you something. But a lot of these people are
Aren't
obviously,
they? Aren't they?
they are actually. And that's not an incorrect view, but um, the part of it that could be expanded is understanding that a lot of them make money when you make money. So yes, are they trying to sell you something? Yes. Is this thing that they're trying to sell you also going to help you to make more money? Yeah. Right. So your incentives are aligned. And I think if you take this adversarial approach to the other players in the space, it can be really destructive. You see this a lot with like distribution. They're just beating on the distributor to get a lower price, lower price, lower price. And I think one of the things, like, for example, that a lot of contractors don't realize is that these distributors have all these perks in place, right? It might be financing buy downs. It might be spiffs. It might be specific programs for specific sales, specific systems. It might be a lot
Hmm.
of things. And if you just hit them with price, 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 you're going to wind up with a low purchase price and they're going to strip out all of these benefits. Whereas if you can be a little bit more flexible on taking a slightly higher price, but then shift your business slightly so you're capturing, let's say, more high efficiency, more IAQ, more financing dollars, your overall net take home will be far higher because now you're working in tandem with your distributors and what they want to do. So they're willing to put more money towards it to support you. So like just taking this approach of adversarial, like I'm just going to beat you up, makes other people want to beat you up in turn, right? It doesn't create good partnerships. But a lot of these folks have things they can give you if you understand their motives and you know how to ask for the thing that they can give you. So I guess that would be my primary
Yeah.
answer to that question is just what motivates the other players in the space and how can you work with them rather than against them?
Yeah. I think I like the word partnership. It really is a collaboration, a partnership, because, everybody in that chain, that whole supply chain cycle only makes money if the owner is making money and it
Mhm.
goes up the ladder. So,
Yeah.
and the clients that I have that are really pretty high in revenue and also that are constantly growing seem to have great relationships with their partners, with their
Yeah.
distributors, with their contractors, because they understand that they're all in it together.
Yeah. You can't
Um,
do it, really. You need
you
their help.
can't.
It's too
Hmm.
much.
It's too much. Let me ask you this. It's kind of a loaded question. If you owned a $5 million HVAC company, what are the first three things that you would change or do, or even just tips? What would be your
Yeah.
main things in a
Yeah.
$5 million HVAC industry company?
This is a really interesting question just because things are changing so quickly right now, like in this space. There's so many new tools, there's all these things. So, the self-serving part of me would say the very first thing you should do is adopt SetSale. But I'm going to put that aside because that's just my,
We'll talk about that in a minute.
yeah. Um, I think that as a general rule of thumb, people will do whatever is easiest, right? People follow the path of least resistance. And so if you're creating processes within your business that require people to jump through all kinds of hoops, they're not going to do it. They're going to shortcut it and you're going to be constantly frustrated with all of your employees. And you're going to think they're stupid and incompetent because they're going to continuously do or not do the thing that you want them to do. Right. So step one, do a process mapping exercise of your entire business. What am I asking my dispatch person to do in order to book a call? What do I ask my salesperson to do in order to make a sale? What do I ask the homeowner to do in order to give me money? Like map that whole process out and start compressing the steps because the reality is that process friction kills sales. The more friction in your process, the lower your close rate will be. So if you reduce friction, close rate will go up. So right off the top, figure out what are the things you're asking your employees to do, your salespeople to do, your homeowners to do, and how can you ask them to do less? Because people do more of things that are pleasant and less of things that are painful. And if you're giving them processes that are painful, they will shortcut the process. And a homeowner shortcutting the process of buying from you just means your close rate goes down. So step one, I'd say, is process map out your business. Figure out what it is
Hmm.
people are actually doing. And then the key to this is like, don't be aspirational about this. Don't sit down and write just you yourself in an office in a little bubble, writing out this perfect happy path. So this is our process. No, you need to actually get your employees in the room and say, what do you actually do? Map out the actual process, not the fake process that you wish it was. Map the actual
Right.
process,
That's a
including all the
great
shortcuts.
point.
Yeah, you got
Yep.
to map the shortcuts. Where are the shortcuts taking place? Like, I know you don't
Hmm.
do all the things we ask you to. So where do you shortcut it? Maybe you make the shortcut the actual process. Maybe it's actually a more efficient way of doing things. So
Right.
yeah, that's probably
Yeah, and
thing
not to
one.
hijack what you said, but it is funny to me how in your process you made a mistake 2 or 3 years ago, and so you added extra steps into your
Yeah.
process. And
Uh-huh.
now nobody really knows why we added those steps, and we probably don't need those steps for that 1 in a 1,000 thing that happened. So that's a great idea. What's your
Yeah.
second and third?
Number two, I'd probably just say is stay focused, right? I mean, it's really easy to get distracted by all these new things, right? Like every time you talk to a contractor, we're thinking about launching, aero sealing. We're thinking about launching this thing. We want to launch a new product because we think if we have more stuff to sell, then we're going to make more money. Like sometimes that's true, but oftentimes that's not true, right? Like unless you've really dialed in the sale that you have right now and you're really super clean and you're like, we're like killing it in this one way, then you probably shouldn't be expanding into a second vertical or to some other set of services.
Mhm.
So it's like knowing
Yeah.
your core competencies. And if that's your end goal, but you also know about yourself that like you're distracted easily, you should probably get a number two around you who's not like you. People hire their
We call
friends
that being
because,
Yeah, we call that being, distracted by the shiny.
yeah,
"Oh, there's some new software that's out there. Oh, oh, look, maybe we should, expand into, um, you know, attic insulation," or something like that. So, yeah, there are a lot of shiny things out there, and you can get so distracted that you don't focus on your core competencies, like you said, like install for an HVAC, to make sure
yeah.
that you're making a lot of money on that
Mhm.
first.
Yeah. Like staying
Yeah,
focused, of course, and just not being distracted by all of the
right.
quote unquote opportunities. Sometimes an opportunity is
Mhm,
actually like a landmine. It's not truly an opportunity. It is for somebody, but it might
mhm,
not be for you. Just because you have a buddy that you talked to at the recent incentive trip who told you that they launched, attic insulation and they made $1.3 million on it last year. That doesn't mean you're going to launch that same thing and make the same money. Like you're
right,
not the same
right.
company, you don't have the same capability. So um, yeah, I mean, that's really sort of key. Um, and then really, I guess the third one would just be the system is the solution, right? Like you do not have the capability to run the business from your head when you get to $5 million. Like there's this transition that happens somewhere around 2 to 3 to $4 million, where you have the owner operator. And up until then, he knows everything going on inside of this business, right? Like he knows all of his employees. He's probably personal friends with them. He knows a lot of his customers. He might be personal friends with some of them. Like he knows how many trucks he has. He knows what his lease rate is on those trucks. He knows who his financing provider is. Like he just knows everything in the business. When you get to $5 million, like 4 or 5 million, right in there, that transition point, there's so many things going on in that business. It is impossible for you to remember all of the crap going on in the business. You can't do it. You're now at an inflection point, and your choice is either I can scale back down to about 4 million, which is manageable just from my own head. And that means I don't have to implement systems, and I don't have to do the process mapping stuff. And I don't have to like do all of these things that are actually a lot of work. And most of the time you're not very comfortable with them. Like it's work you haven't done before. You don't feel like super competent at it. You don't want to go pay somebody $30,000 to do it for you. But like that's effectively your choice. You're now at the size where you can choose to implement correct business systems and scale into a 10 to 12 to $15 million business, or you can dial it back down a little bit and just decide this is a lifestyle business for me and I'm never going to grow it above $4.5 million. But
Yeah.
yeah, if you're 5 million or growth oriented, just recognize it's a trade-off, right? I like
Yeah.
the expression, there are no solutions, only trade-offs, right? If you want a lifestyle
I
business,
love that. I haven't heard that before.
yeah, there's no moral right or wrong that says, oh, you have to grow at all costs. You've got to get 10 million, then you got to get 15 million. Like there's nothing that says that's the right thing to do. I know plenty of guys who run a $4 million business year over year, very profitable. They love it. It's a lifestyle business, family business, and they're good with it. And they're not looking for massive growth, and that's fine.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
like, I think that's just recognizing where you are as a business.
Hmm. But I think that most businesses, I'll just speak as a business owner, the most businesses is the owner that is getting in the way of growth. Like they're the ones, it becomes like I used to have my business coach say, it's the Pam show. And you're sitting in all the seats trying to manage and control everything. And you've got to put systems in place and people in place. And
Yeah.
and we did that here at Explore HVAC because I wanted to have a life. I
Uh-huh.
wanted a lifestyle besides my business. So that's one of the things that you have to do. And I talk to owners and they'll say, I got to get out of this business because they haven't set up the systems that get them out of the business for a little while, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think it's hard to do. And this is the part that's like a mental struggle. And I've been going through this myself, right? Over the last 6 months as we've been growing, is every step along the way, you have to find a way to replace yourself. So what are the things that
Hmm.
I'm doing right now? How do I train somebody else to do those things? Because there's always a higher level in the business you can step up and step into. There's a bunch of stuff you're not doing right now. And you know how quickly you're going to discover what those are? The second you don't have to continue doing all the same things that you're doing right now, and you have a little tiny
Yeah.
bit of freedom, you'll instantly discover all of these things that you have not been doing that you really need to do that are important for your business. And then you start doing those things, right? So you continuously like backfill yourself and train your replacement until you can like get into higher and higher level business. And that's how you scale the business, is because you are the key to the scale. You're either the limitation to scale or you're the key to the actual expansion of the scale. And the sooner
Hmm.
you can backfill and replace yourself over and over again as you like move the business into a larger and larger uh, setting, then the more likely you are to actually be successful with that. So, but we're all like, I don't want to give this up. Maybe I think this is the value that I add. You know, the thing that makes me special, the things that makes me like really good for this business. The reason we've been successful is because I'm really good at X. And if I train somebody else to be really good at X, does that make me irrelevant? No, you're the owner. Okay. Like you're in charge. Your job is to train somebody else to get really good at X so they can become really good at something else, even if it's not your core competency today.
Yeah. I know. We were talking about yesterday is in another podcast that I was in that one of the biggest when we were in our because we're a $4 million company and when we started growing past the $1 million mark, under a million, I tended to do every job and hire someone to help me do my job, right?
Uh-huh.
Because it was
Yeah.
still my job. And
Yeah,
then after
exactly.
that, I realized I don't need to hire people to be my assistants. I need people that are going to take it off of me completely,
Uh-huh.
become the experts, and know more about it than I know about it. And I think when an owner gets to that point and realizes, oh, I don't have to know every job, when they feel comfortable enough that they can relinquish control, that's
Uh-huh.
when super growth happens. And before that, if all you're doing is training that person and only letting them do a little bit, you're just not
Hmm.
going to grow, you know.
Yeah.
And you've
Yeah.
got to, and then I think the next phase in growth is to let that person you've hired set up the systems, where you're not having to set up every little system.
Hmm.
So,
That's really hard to
well,
do. It's easy
it
to
is
say, but
hard to
that's
do.
actually incredibly hard to do, right? Like if you're used to kind of like being on top of everything and being in charge of your life, and you're kind of one of these like you're kind of a type A, and you really want to like do things the right way. You've had success in life by doing everything yourself and getting it done the right way. And so now you're having to
Hmm.
step back from this really reinforced behavior. Like this is behavior that's been reinforced in me for 40 years straight. That when I take
Right.
control and rule myself, like good things happen. And now I'm having to like release, let somebody else have control of that. And you risk looking stupid at certain times. People say, well, how does this work?
Right.
This is
And
my business.
it
I
is
should know
really hard.
exactly
Well,
how it
because you
works.
become the trainer and the mentor instead of the
Yeah.
very capable person of getting it done. And
Yeah.
that's a big shift for a lot of people. And honestly, it's hard to learn how to train other people. I think it's hard to learn how to do
Yeah.
that. Some people are natural trainers, and some people have to learn how to be patient and realize and don't, that you can't just tell somebody one time and think that they're going to know how to do it.
Hmm.
Well, I want to shift gears a little bit here because everybody's talking about AI right now. It
Hmm.
is everywhere. And, even my mom is using AI. And so I hope she's not listening. I didn't mean anything by that, Mom. But everybody's talking about it in the HVAC space. What do you think contractors misunderstand about AI and the future that we're going to have with AI?
Yeah. Um, well, step one, a lot of contractors do understand this, but I still hear this concern, which is that if you're in the home improvement trades, the beautiful thing is AI is not going to take your job, right? Like if there's
Yeah,
anybody who is incredibly secure, it is tradesmen, craftsmen, and people in these home improvement spaces, welders, electricians, plumbers, HVAC people. I mean, they are 100% insulated. It can't come in. It can make your job easier. But so the good news is that AI is going to make your life easier, but it's not going to replace you. You're always going to be there. And so you're actually sort of in the catbird seat. And I have, like I have high school age children, and now they're telling them, like when I was, oh, if you don't go to college, oh, it's just, you're going to be a worthless dropout. If you don't go to college, oh, it's going to be so bad, right? They just drilled it into your head that you had to go to
right,
college or
right.
you're a loser. And that's stressful as a kid. Now they're telling my children, well, if you really want to be secure, you should go into the trades, right? Go become an auto mechanic or a welder or a plumber. The reversal is so dramatic. It's incredible. So that's the first thing is
And
that
the
it's not
pay
going
is also
to. Oh
dramatically
yeah.
changing too, you
Oh
know?
yeah. Yeah. The vast majority of home trades people I work with make more than the majority of the attorneys that I went to law school with.
Wow. I think it's
So
true. I mean, especially like graphic designers, things like that. I mean, they're coming out making $12 an hour, and you've got HVAC people making $30, $40 an hour. And
yeah,
and they don't have a student loan.
I know.
So it is really, it's really a different, I'm going to use the word ecosystem again because I haven't used it in
Mhm.
years, but it is a different world that our kids are graduating in.
Yeah.
So,
And it's
um,
changing so fast. I guess the only other thing I'll say about that in terms of like AI is that the whole point of AI is to make your life easier. So there's a lot of AI tools coming into this space right now, just a ton. And many of them, like being in the technology space, I see a lot of these tools. I'm like, that's the product. It's so narrow and shallow. Like if you knew anything about software, you could vibe code that in 3 hours. And you're selling that for $800 a month to these contractors. I just feel like sometimes the value proposition in our space specifically is kind of poor sometimes. Um, and I also feel like AI, the purpose of it is to make your life easier. So if you're feeling all this pressure, if you're a contractor and you're feeling all this, we got to AI our business, we got to do all this stuff, right? But the solutions you're looking at don't immediately just go and take pressure off your plate. You're looking at the wrong AI solutions, right? Like if it doesn't make your job easier, it's noise. It's pointless
right.
noise. So that's it. Just look for the things that will
Absolutely.
solve real problems for you rather than the hype and the buzz.
So, um, let's let's get into this product that you guys have developed called SetSale. Tell me
Yeah.
what that is. and what it does.
Yeah. So SetSale is effectively a sales enablement tool for HVAC contractors.
Hmm.
Things that we make the buying process for the homeowner a lot more enjoyable, a lot more customizable, a lot more similar to, the process they might have on Amazon when they're going through the self-checkout process. They can customize and tweak. And so part of the goal is to make the homeowner experience better. And a better experience is one that's lower pressure, more customized, more options, where the overall approach is, I'm going to give you options and we will do whatever is easiest for you. And then we make everything.
Wait a minute. You're giving people options? Because I've heard training where they say only give a customer one option because a confused buyer always says no.
Yeah, the trouble is you're not confusing somebody with one option. And also who picks what the option is, right? Like if you ask most contractors, not most contractors, sophisticated contractors know better, but
Hmm.
there's a lot of contractors who will say, all they need is federal minimum base efficiency stuff. They don't, that inverter stuff, that's a scam. That's only for the OEMs pushing that stuff. There's a lot of views, or there's some people only offer the highest efficiency $26,000 system. Kind of like, look, people know their needs better than you do. And a confused mind says no. But if you get to the end, it's a confused mind. What does that tell you? It's that your sales process was not educational in nature. It was just
Yeah.
high prep. So they won't
Hmm.
be a confused mind if you do a good job explaining to them what the options actually are, which leads to the other part of Set Sale, which is an in-home sales presentation. So, it can be AI led, it can be human led, but essentially visual selling tool. It's got a voiceover that you can enable if you want to in multiple languages. And so it allows you to create a consistent educational sales process where the homeowner learns enough to make a decision, be comfortably informed enough to make a decision on what they think is going to be best for them. They understand the trade-offs. They understand, the benefits and the detriments of each one of these different options. And then you get them to the end. We're not talking about 12 options, right? We're talking about 3 to 4 options. It's
Hmm.
an give them a spectrum of options without getting overwhelming. So
Right.
that's
But kind of a good, better, best. And
exactly.
yeah. So I think a lot of reasons why, well, why do you think, I mean, I'm kind of telling you what I've heard in the trainings that I've been involved in,
Yeah.
where they'll say, oh, we just give them one option because it just gets too confusing. But it does make me wonder if it's, if it's really about confusion or if it is about the person that we put in that job either doesn't have the patience or doesn't have the knowledge to explain several options.
I think
What
about
would
it
you
like,
say to that?
well, if I go onto the Ford website today and I decide that I want to build some custom F-150, Ford is going to ask me no less than about 25 questions around trim and suspension and the size of my engine and different displacement capacities within the engine, for my tires, for my rims, for my interior coloring, for the fabric inside. Like, they're going to ask me so many questions in the process of building that process. And in each one of those questions, I don't think, oh my gosh, this becomes so much more confusing. Instead, I start to feel more and more ownership over the product that I've created because it's mine. And even though I'm not some expert on all of the displacement mechanics around, internal combustion engines and specific to Ford relative to Dodge or Chevy or whatever, I still feel comfortable because there's a little button there that I can look at and it tells me, oh, this one's basically more powerful and has higher torque for more towing. This one is better for this. This is better for that. So I can pretty quickly educate myself, and I don't have to know everything about it. I just have to know this one gets worse fuel economy, but tows more stuff. This one gets better fuel economy, it tows less stuff. What do you want? I think I want to tow more stuff. Okay, click that one. Right. So
Hmm.
that could be really confusing. We're talking about pretty technically sophisticated information, but you're giving me the ability to answer those questions on my own. I don't need an entire educational process. It's fairly straightforward as long as you create an educational process that is homeowner centric. So, like,
Oh, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. So you've kind of mapped out that decision-making journey with
mhm,
Set Sale. Is that
yeah,
right? And kind of
yeah.
so do you make it would you say that the person does Set Sale help the 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 person that is doing the sales presentation? Like, can you
Yeah,
have someone that maybe isn't as sophisticated? Because typically it's the owner, right, that's kind of
yeah,
talking them
yeah,
into it, or someone that's
yeah,
higher up the chain.
yeah.
Does this
Well, you really
help
have,
with
the
that?
3 levels, right? Smaller company, it's
Mhm.
an owner, right? Medium-sized company, it's often a comfort advisor or a selling tech might step in when the comfort advisor is really busy. Then as you get
Uh-huh.
bigger, they tend to have a blend of selling techs and comfort advisors. But to your point,
Right.
right, like many of these people are not dedicated trainers. They're not used to explaining this stuff. So yeah, part of the process, the idea behind SetSale is let's idiot proof the selling process in a way that's way easier and empowering to the actual sales rep, and then a much more pleasant buying experience for the homeowner. Right. And so the way that we do that too is also we use AI and algorithms and we tie into all of the data sources. So for example, we do a
Mm-hmm.
integration. So let's say you're set up with one of our distributors that we have a direct integration. That means that distributor's models, pricing, and inventory is pushing to you on a regular basis. So when I open up SetSale, I know exactly what's in stock. My pricing is always actually 100% accurate. If I'm utilizing Service Titan, it'll backwards integrate it into Service Titan and update the price book within Service Titan. So it eliminates another manual step along the way. Um, and then when I go in, let's say I enter into a SetSale and I say, I want to quote a 3-ton heat pump. I say 3-ton heat pump, upflow, C cabinet, and FS space constraints. And then what are my orientation is, horizontal, application, whatever. I hit create. And in 1 second, what the AI does is it looks at my list of equipment. Okay. And it says, okay, this is my constraint. And then it goes into the HRI database because we're tied into that. And then it pulls a list of every single matchup from my list of equipment that'll fit this house. So it's going to pull in every single 3-ton heat pump, C cabinet outflow matchup that could be created. And there's probably 25 of them, right? Then it's going to go through and it's going to select 4 of those options of them, but most differentiated from each other based on high SEER and low cost. So I'm going to wind up with like a 21 SEER, maybe a 17.5 SEER, like a 16 SEER, and then like a 14, 0.5 SEER heat pump, right? So I've got all ranging from my federal minimum of my highest efficiency. The AI is doing all
Yeah.
of that decision work for me. And then it's going to take the raw inputs on that and it's going to run through my pricing engine, which is built into SetSale, which the contractor set up. And it's going to generate all the pricing for all 4 of those options. It's going to build an IAQ. It's going to build in all the financing. It's going to calculate the monthly payment. It's going to build the financing fees directly into the job cost. It's going to offer upgrades and add-ons like indoor air quality things. It's going to build in commissions, build in all your parts and pieces. All of that happens in about 1 second. It also generates
Wow.
feature sets for every single one of those options in real time based on that exact matchup. So now when I go to present to the homeowner, in 1 second, I just created like a perfectly optimized quote. I can hit present and it'll display to the homeowner. I can also share that quote and the full presentation with the homeowner. So a big problem you get into is you show up, only one spouse is home. If you sell
Right.
this person, you're going to get a call that night, either delaying or canceling the sale because you can't
Right.
do that. Married couples have to talk to each other, right?
Well, and you're usually sitting there, the person's going through and they're writing it manually down and it's just
Yeah.
numbers, you know,
Yeah.
this year and it's going to be this and this is going to be that.
Hmm.
One of the things that I do like about what you're talking about is consistency and making it easy to hire. Because I have
Hmm.
salespeople that work for me, and we try to come up with what's the one thing that salespeople don't like to do. I mean, they have kind of a rebellious spirit anyway. That's what makes them good salespeople. They don't like following processes and rules and that kind of stuff, right? And so as an owner, you wanna know that when they go out there, they're following like they're representing you that they're following a consistent,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
process, right? And, if you have a really good process, then it's easier to hire instead of having the finesse, s
Yeah.
salesperson. And, we
Yeah.
can't hire another salesperson because it'll take them 3 years to learn everything, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, the finesse salesperson who came in with no training, they often evolve into the prima donna salesperson who has to have
oh,
everything their
yeah.
way because
We
you as a
wouldn't know
business.
about that, would we? I'm looking over at my podcaster, yeah, producer. We didn't know
Yeah.
about that.
So salespeople tend to start to get this inflated sense of self, like this whole place would shut down if I left. I'm the key to all the growth. I brought in this many dollars last year. I'm the whole business. Right. And so that's what you get if you hire a salesperson and you give them no process. And if they're actually successful, they know they've got you, right?
Right.
They have all the leverage and the tail wags the dog instead of you actually running your business. So, yeah, it's a big problem. And the other thing I find too is that if I'm sitting in your hand writing a quote, 2 things that are
Mhm.
happening. The first thing is that homeowner believes that I am like price gouging them. I'm looking at their ability to pay and I'm changing the price based upon
Yeah, and
whatever I
I'm
think their
pulling it
ability.
out, and because I'm in a
Exactly.
fancy house or whatever, right?
Exactly. This person has a Range Rover in the driveway and they've got a nice house in this neighborhood. Yeah, I'm going to add $4,000 for this ticket. And whether you do that or not, they believe you're doing that. And it damages all of your trust and credibility, which is the fundamental basis of like closing a sale. They have to trust you. So that's
Well,
thing
and
number
then they
one.
also go, "You know what? I think I wanna go for a second opinion. I wanna get a second
Yeah,
quote, just
that you
sure,"
wind up with
right?
rebid situation. Yeah.
Yep.
The other thing too is nowadays they just take a picture of everything you just wrote down and they drag and drop it into Chat GPT and they say, "How does this look? Does this look fair for the area that I'm in? I mean, should I buy this?" And then Chat GPT is gonna, who knows what, tell them what, but it's probably gonna tell them to
Mhm.
get more quotes. You might consider getting a couple more bids on this, right? Because it's
Right,
just what
right.
you get.
And we
So
listen to everything it says,
yeah,
unfortunately, yes,
we really do. It's got way too much
we
credibility.
do.
Yeah. So yeah, that creating that consistency in the sales process makes it easy to hire and train. It gives you more leverage over the sales team as opposed to them just like jerking you around every time they need something. And you're going to have a more consistent and predictable like close rate and selling process and everything like that. So it's an area that's been long overdue in this space, right?
Well, and I think, speed to, I hear this a lot, speed to implement,
Yeah.
and if you the longer you that gap between talking to the client and getting them numbers. The
Hmm.
longer that goes, the less urgent it becomes. And
Hmm.
I think that's another thing is they'll say, okay, I'm going to get back to you with numbers. And I think that's a
Yeah.
danger as well.
You kill it.
Um,
Yeah. One kills all sales. In fact, I saw
that's the word I was looking for. That was the phrase. Time kills all sales. That's
I
right.
saw a study on this actually. I wish I could remember where I saw it. So I'm going to be stating something without a backup source. But effectively, what it said was that if a contractor shows up within 2 hours of when the homeowner originated the lead and the demand, the close rate is like 86%. If they show up within
Wow.
8 hours, the close rate drops to the high 30%, like 36, 37%. If they show up the next day, the close rate drops to being in the mid to high teens, 16, 17%. So
Wow.
just getting there when the homeowner is ready to make a decision, when they're thinking about it, when they're focused on it, when they want to solve the problem. But the longer it drags on without being solved, the more comfortable they become living in this limbo world where the problem's not solved. And so then become more patient. And then they're going to check this and they're going to check that. And eventually somebody's going to roll in when they're ready to solve the problem again. And you can't really predict that. And that person's getting the business. So it'll be unrelated to whoever was the best or anything like that. So, like, if you create a delay from the time they're ready to solve the problem to when you can actually solve the problem, you're right. And for me, like the level of enthusiasm the homeowner has starts out at the highest it will ever be. The second they call your phone, that's when their level of enthusiasm to fix those problems at the highest. And then every minute that passes, it's going to tick down just a couple little levels. And at some point, it's going to hit this very low line level of enthusiasm where it's going to be really hard to get them to take any action at all.
Well,
So,
I think where that is when they have that it's not working and you come out and fix it, did the temporary fix, right?
mhm.
Like it's leaking. And so I recharged it
Yeah,
and the person comes out, gives you the quote. Well, it's working okay now. I think
yeah,
I'll wait
exactly.
until I have that again, right?
Yeah,
That's where
yeah,
you just lost the urgency. Whereas when
yes,
you're sitting in a hot house and it hasn't cooled down, you're ready to do anything, so this never happens again,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Oh, yeah. That's when I get a phone call from my wife. Honey, it's so hot in here. We're all sweating. Can you just fix this thing?
Just
Right. And at
fix it,
that
and
point,
I don't ever wanna go through this again, right? I mean, that's
I know.
but then once you're sitting back in the cool thing and they come the next day with a proposal and you go, "Well, it's working okay right now, and I only need to spend like $300, so yeah, I'll just
Yes.
wait."
No. Yeah.
That's what happens,
Yeah.
I think. And so those numbers that you just gave are perfect. That's exactly what happens. Um So if you can show up within 2 hours, 86%, within 8 hours, you said what? Around 36% and then it's
36,
in the teens, but it's
37%.
the
Yeah.
next day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Into the teens the next day.
And then I think you also get into the point of when they start getting when a lot of my contractors are really good and their prices may not be the lowest price because they're
Mhm.
not a commodity. They are offering a lot of extra warranties and service and all the things. And so the longer you let it go, the more it becomes a function of price as opposed to reputation.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's a lot of contractors you talk to, and you effectively ask them, like, you don't ask it in these terms, but you're really saying, what's your value proposition in the market? Like,
Hmm.
understanding why do you close the jobs that you close? A lot of the time when I talk to contractors and you ask them why is it they're winning the sale, they'll often reference the bigger players in their market and they'll say these guys are ripping them off. Their price is so high. And what they're really selling you is that we're way cheaper than those guys. We do the same thing for way less. But you also find that they typically are selling mostly base efficiency. They don't do a whole lot of IAQ add-ons. They're not selling extended labor warranties. They're not doing all of these things I've been told that increase the average ticket. And so what it comes down to is if you are actually charging more, then there's money left over at the end of the day to reinvest into the marketing. But if there's not very much money left over at the end of the day and you're having to choose between, do I reinvest this in the business or do I buy little Tommy a new pair of shoes? Tommy's getting a new pair of shoes. I can promise you that much. So
Hmm.
you will strip that money out of the business every single time because you need it. And so there's this misconception around like what your value is. It reminds me of a story of the nuclear engineer. You've probably heard this story where
I don't think I
there's a
have.
nuclear
Let's hear it.
there's a nuclear power plant and it's having serious issues and they can't figure out what's wrong. They've got all their best engineers trying to fix it, but they can't get the pressures right in different valves and tanks. And so they discover there's this guy who is like the best in the world. And they say, what does he charge? Oh, he's $250,000 to come in and fix this thing. And by now their solutions are exhausted. So they pay this guy $250,000. The guy walks into the power plant, looks at a few gauges, twists a couple nozzles, walks into the room, twists something, everything goes to normal. It's like, I'm done. They're like, $250,000 for that? You were only here for 10 minutes. And he goes, no, it's $250,000 for the 30 years that I spent learning how to walk in here and fix this thing in 10 minutes. That's what you're paying for. And so as a contractor, it's easy to undervalue your own expertise and your own ability, your own
Hmm.
work, because you know it so well. You just think clearly this is easy. Everybody else knows it, but it's not true. And without you, many people are in very big trouble. They need the skills that you have and you shouldn't undervalue the skills and treat yourself like you're just common labor. You do have a set of skills and you can offer that. It's okay to charge a premium. You don't have to feel bad like you're ripping people off. You're not. What you're doing is
Right.
investing in your business and you're feeding your family. And you have to do this or your business is not going to last long term.
Well, and I have we have some clients that are small and they're trying to grow. And I always worry about whether they're undercutting themselves because they really need somebody answering the phone.
Hmm.
And you can only have someone answering the phone and helping solve problems so that you can be out there helping the homeowner if you're charging enough to be able to have someone to answer the phones. And
Yeah.
so that's part of reinvesting in your business. And
Hmm.
I think the pride of being able to offer the lowest price um, can stand in the way of good business decisions.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, and I've been there. We've all been there. We've all been there. It's
Yeah.
just it's a part of it's part of the growth of the business. Um, I want to ask you. This is regardless of the of software or anything.
Yeah.
What is the one change that you would tell a contractor to make that would immediately improve their close rate besides getting there quickly? What
Sure.
would you say,
Sure.
what is one change that you would tell them to make?
It's hard to answer that without knowing which business you're talking to because it's probably different for each of them. One common one, if you're not offering financing, like
Mhm.
immediately just start offering financing. I mean, the vast majority of people in the country do not have the dollars to pay for your systems. This buying a system now is the equivalent of buying a used car. I mean, how many car dealerships would be in business today if they were offering financing?
Mhm.
Zero. Okay. Zero. Every single person, it's like 99% of cars are financed in America. And we're offering something at a similar price point. And a lot of people just say, we're really blessed in my market. All my customers pay cash. No, they don't. They're lining up
Mm-mm.
financing outside of you.
Not anymore. Not
Yeah, it's
anymore.
not the case. It's probably less than
Yeah.
5% of your customers. And if you just look at the numbers, it's like less than 5% of people have over $5,000 in the bank. So that just doesn't bode well for a unplanned surprise failure in your mechanical equipment. I heard that the average family of four spends $10,000 to $12,000 on a Disneyland trip, and they end up spending about 20 hours planning that trip. they spend the same amount of money on an HVAC system and end up spending on average 1.5 hours making that decision. It is
Wow.
a
Wow.
rushed need. You don't have to, you have to do this thing, and it's usually on a short time window. So you think their level of knowledge about what this is pretty low. They're being pushed into this
Right.
situation. They don't have the money. They've not been planning on it for the last year and a half. So I guess the number one thing
No,
to
but
do.
it's also not as much fun as going on Disneyland trip.
Yeah.
So why
Yeah.
would we
Yeah.
wanna spend that kind of time on it? That's what we have you for. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but I think that is a really important point, and I will tell you from a marketing standpoint, especially when my clients are really busy, all we have to do is put out there 5 years, 0% or as low as $69,
Yeah.
and we don't have to discount the systems. We just need to let them know we have financing and their phones start ringing. So
Yeah.
if you don't have financing, that's really something that you should do. And I know you worked with Good Leap; they're a good one, a good source.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good options out there, and if you don't have it, you're at a competitive disadvantage for sure.
Yeah.
Let
No.
me ask you this: what major shift do you see coming in the HVAC industry over the next 5 years? What's one big shift that we should all be aware of? 'Cause you're a smart guy.
I think there's quite a few shifts coming actually, right? I think that if I'm an OEM, like a manufacturer, I would be
Hmm.
very concerned about the Chinese manufacturers flooding into the space because they're doing so at ridiculously low price points. And it's really undercutting the market. And it feels temporarily like a good thing for a contractor who's getting some Chinese equipment at super low price. But at the end of the day, that is going to be a major challenge if I'm an OEM, right? If I'm a distributor who's selling things, my concern is the online resale, right? So I can now go online, I can order equipment from somebody in Boston or something like that, and they ship it to me over the next 3, 4 days.
I think you
That's
can buy it from Home Depot now too, can't you?
you can, yeah. So the availability of distribution, it used to be a little bit more locked down, and it still is for specific brands. But if people aren't brand centric, then I mean, getting equipment now has become insanely easy. I can go on my computer right now, and in 5 minutes, I can have an entire system being shipped to my home, and it'll get here in a week, right? So
Mhm,
that's a huge threat to the distributor. At a contractor level, I think the big shift is going to be more and more towards the Amazonification of the entire industry, right? Which it
mhm.
means that we're used to this being um, organic growth, friends and family, all that kind of stuff. But more and more people, when they make a decision, look down at their phone. And that means that all of the AI LLMs, that means that Google, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, these will continue to be more and more, not just a source of entertainment, but a source of information that people actually rely on and trust. So
Mhm, I
in
do. And
addition
I
to
mean, we
that,
already know people trust reviews, right?
yeah,
But
yeah. But
but it's gonna go beyond that because I think
yeah,
most consumers are used to researching before they buy.
mhm,
I mean, people in my office, if they're buying shoes, they're gonna research and see what people say.
yeah, yeah.
And I
And
mean,
what does research
so
mean?
yeah, and
Right.
this is the most expensive appliance in my house. So
Mhm.
to think that people wouldn't start doing that, and also Google is starting to give a lot more data out there about how much people
Yeah,
charge for certain services. They're
yeah,
collecting a ton of data on
yeah.
that right now.
Well, well, and one of the other things too is oftentimes people think about their website and their online presence as effectively like either a billboard or a lead gen funnel, right? But more in reality, if you don't have online buying capabilities, right? Homeowner looks down at ChatGPT or Google. They look at some of the different stuff. They click into it. They want to get more information, but they really don't want somebody coming out to their house and badgering them and putting pressure on. So they want to get as far down that road as they can before they have to have
Mhm,
somebody come out. And if you allow them to get so far down the road that they've just, they put in their own information, we got a load count generated out of it. It automatically specs the correct equipment to them. They're looking at a 4 option proposal that is actually accurate based on your pricing in your price book today. It's based on your exact calculations. Now they're selecting something. They're customizing it. They're turning certain things off and on. They're going through the signature process. They go through the financing process and they schedule their own job. Guess what? A lot of people prefer that process. I think we're going to see that growing. We're actively building that right now at SetSale. We're pretty close. but it's the
Ooh, I want to
whole.
stay close with you on that because I will say, have you read that book, Marcus Sheridan? Um, They Ask You Answer. Have you read that book?
Oh no, I haven't actually, but I've heard of it.
Okay, Seth, you got to read that book. I actually have heard him
Okay.
speak a couple of
Gotta make
times.
gotta
And
make a note.
he talks about the exact things you're talking about. And he talks about the fact that the consumers now are so much more, they're researching stuff so much more. And he
Mhm.
says when you have on your website, oh, call for more information, we'll customize our quote and stuff. They know, like, we as consumers know that you know what this is probably going to cost, and you're
Mhm.
keeping that from me. Like,
Yes.
and so you're putting up this wall, and so we're going to
Mhm.
find somewhere else to find the answer. So do you
Yeah, if
want
you're
to be the source of
gatekeeping.
answers and the
Mhm.
authority that they want to call and talk to? And his business was a pool. He had a pool company, and he said the closing process that typically would take 3 to 4 hours only took 30 minutes because he
Mhm.
offered so much research and information and
Yeah.
quoting online that by the time that didn't have to hire salespeople, he hired
Yeah.
order takers, right? And
Yeah.
because it came an ordering process as opposed
Mhm.
to a sales process.
Yeah. And
So
sales.
I'm with you. I think that's where we're going.
Mhm. Sales has always been educational in nature, right? Like you
Hmm.
show up, help somebody like develop a framework for how they can conceptualize whatever decision they're making. And since they know nothing and you know everything, and so there's this huge knowledge asymmetry, you can actually construct the framework that makes them most likely to buy from you because you've
Right.
supplied all of the facts, right? So that's sort of how we viewed sales traditionally. You can do some of that, but you have to lean much more heavily into the educational piece of the sale process. You have
Right.
to teach
Right.
them in a way that's transparent, that's in good faith, that's trying to help them rather than like shoving them as hard as you can up into the most expensive system that you have. It's got to be, here are some options. Let's educate you about each of these options and let's make sure that we're giving you what aligns best with your preferences. If you give them that and they can do so in a way that doesn't actually involve you, because most people, more and more, I hear this from contractors, they don't want people in their home. They don't want a contractor in their house.
They don't want them in their home, and they also don't wanna take the time. Like,
Yes.
I'm literally since I don't have kids at home anymore, like, like I had college kids around the house and stuff, and I could say,
Hmm.
"Hey, plumber's coming over," or whatever. Well, I work an
Hmm.
hour away from home. For me to, like, it's a lot of work for me to
Yeah.
meet somebody. I think people are just really busy, and they don't wanna take the time to have to meet somebody several times if they don't have to.
Yeah.
And I think people are on their phones all the time. At night, one random question. I was standing in the hallway and somebody said something and I said, "Oh, I don't know." And we're both looking it up on our phone, you know?
Hmm.
It's just a whole
Hmm.
culture shift.
It is. Yeah. And I think we have not responded to it yet. And it hasn't hit us as hard because, things like it probably hits finance and banking and social media and tech. Those are the areas that gets hit first. But then it slowly trickles down the supply chain. And the closer you get down to like the actual
Mhm.
hands working, it takes longer to adjust that behavior,
Yeah.
but it's coming.
I think it's the 5-year thing that's gonna start happening. I do. And I think that the folks that start thinking through strategies to provide quote ranges, ranges on the quote, and like everybody's scared to put that out there. But really, we know that that my system's going to cost between $8 and $22,000 to
Yeah.
replace. I'm just making this, but
Mhm.
it's a big range depending on what I
Yeah.
want to buy, right? And
Yeah.
people are scared to give that information. In fact, we actually were scared to put our pricing for what we offer out on our website, and we finally
Yeah.
became Marcus Sheridan advocates, and we launched it out there because we know that there needs to be some transparency in the transaction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked a lot. We've had, I mean, amazing conversation here. I'm a note taker, and I took a ton of notes because you had so many great things to say, Seth. Um, And I really loved all the things that you said. I love that you said that processes that create friction, people are going to go around it because I see that all the time. So you've got to make it easy. We talked about a confused buyer, and we talked about how you can use some of the tools that you guys have for consistent, educational, um, consistent sales process, educational, how it gives the homeowner a little bit more ownership. Let me see what else you said. Oh, I liked how there's all kinds of solutions, but every solution is a trade-off, and I love that. I'm
Mhm.
gonna use that from now on. Um, let's see, what else? Oh, we talked about, speed to sale and making sure that a point of difference is financing, for your close. So, there's so many great things. What's next for SetSale? Where you kind of alluded to it, but,
Yeah.
how many people are you helping? I think you even have some co-ops going on with some distributors, right?
Do. Yeah. So part of our product is we also integrate with distributors. And so for a number of distribution partners we work with, they actually will buy the licenses directly from SetSale and then deploy them to their contractors. And
Wow.
because they're building the integrations directly and they have the relationship with the contractor, it makes it a lot cleaner that way. So what's next? We want to continue to expand upon that. I mean, we've been adding um, about one distributor per week or so, and we'll hope to continue that trajectory because distributor partners are great partners and they have relationships with contractors and they're really deep in the space. And so they give us tons of really good feedback on our product about little ways to improve it. We've taken a lot of that feedback. So we want to continue to grow in the distribution OEM space in terms of integrations. And obviously, we want to help
Yeah.
as many contractors as possible. We'll continue to build out integrations. We're integrated with Service Titan and House Call Pro, but we'll continue
Oh,
to
good.
build integrations with the next 3 or 4 FSMs over the next 9 months. We've got some financing integrations. Our first one actually just went live this week, and we have some additional financing integrations that are like fully baked all the
Oh,
way directly, partners built directly into the tool. And then I think I mentioned, but moving to a touchless, fully remote homeowner buying process directly from the
really?
contractor's engagement or website is another thing that we're moving towards. So, I mean, the goal, we're only staying in HVAC. We're not going to try to be all things to all people. It's like, look, there's enough room in HVAC. We can continue to improve in this space for years to come. We don't need to go try and chase. Now we do roofs and now we do solar and now we do this, right? It's like,
Right.
how about let's just do one thing really, really, really well. And rather than doing 10 things just okay, right? And so we just want to do HVAC super well. We do accommodate like plumbing and electrical because a lot of HVAC guys also offer those things. But we're really like laser focused on HVAC, making the buying process for the homeowner, the selling process for the contractor, just as idiot proof and easy and enjoyable as possible. So any way we can continue to improve that to make it easier for each one of them, that's
Yeah.
really the goal. So we'll just continue to go deeper and deeper and expand broader and broader to our contractor base. And yeah, just keep growing, making things better for people.
So, hey, Seth, if anybody's interested in finding out more about Set Sale, can they ask their distributor, or should they contact you directly? Give
Yeah.
us some,
Yeah, they could do either one of those. If you go to setsale.ai, and sale is SALE. So
like
setsale.ai.
making a sale. Okay.
Yeah, making a sale. You're setting up your sale, right?
Okay.
Um, so setsale.ai, they have a book a demo thing. You can also email us sales@setsale.ai. If you have a distributor, so if you're familiar with SetSale, if you look at, we have some YouTube videos, we got a good social media presence. So if you look at a few of those things and you decide it's something that you think your distributor would benefit from, happy to make an introduction. We would love it if you'd say, hey, Mr. Distributor, we think you should look at this. It might be a cool integration. And we make those partnerships all the time and they're great partnerships. So we really like that. So yeah, come find us at setsale.ai or email us and, we'd love to work with you.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, hey, thank you, Seth. I've learned so much, and I think our listeners did too. And for all you guys out there, thank you for tuning in. Remember to subscribe for more insights and stories and get to know some of these leaders in HVAC and home services. And until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep exploring.